Hello everyone, Adam here again from 442. Now, Erling Haaland, you might have heard of the fella. He's been pulling up trees in the Premier League for the past 18 months and he's recently just hit 50 goals on the weekend against Liverpool. No one's surprised. I'm not, you're not. It was coming. I think we all knew by September 2022, really. So the fact it's happened now, it was inevitable. Andy Cole did it in 65 games, Erling Haaland just 48, beating him by 17 games. He could have taken it till March without scoring a goal, and he still would have beaten it had he have just scored a goal in March. So, ridiculous. He's got the best goals to game ratio and the best conversion rate in Premier League history with a conversion rate of 28.7%. So not too shabby. So we're going to break down all of his goals, how they have been scored, who's assisted them, whereabouts on the pitch they've come from, how many touches he's taken. And we're going to find out the average Erling Haaland goal out of the 50 that he has scored so far. So let's go on. So the data breakdown reads as follows. He has scored 36 goals with his left foot, which I mean is pretty expected. He is a left-footed striker, so that's pretty customary. He scored 6 goals with his right foot on his weaker side, 7 with his head, and 1 with his... Now, it should be to no one's surprise that the most common assister for Erling Haaland has been Kevin De Bruyne, as it is for every player who wears a blue shirt, because that man will just find you, even if you're bad at football. If you have 2 yards of space, you'll get a chance with him. But firstly, before we break down Kevin De Bruyne and how he has serviced Erling Haaland, let's look at some of the rarer goals that Erling Haaland has actually scored for City in the Premier League so far. So one thing you might have noticed about Erling Haaland is he doesn't really like to touch the ball for a footballer. For someone as good as him and with as many goals as him, he rarely ever has a sniff of it, which is actually testament to how good he is. But a rarer type of goal that he scored is 2 from outside the box. 1 away at Wolves last season and 1 at home to Brighton this season. 1 on his left foot and 1 on his right, which just goes to show that he has got it in his locker, that slight bit of ball carrying when need be, and when the defence are a bit more pegged back than they usually are when they're preoccupied with Erling. So he does have the ability to drive forward and beat the goalkeeper from range, should it be required every now and then. You also might be thinking, well, how does he score his headers? It must be from Kevin De Bruyne. And while that might be true in a few instances, we've seen more recently with De Bruyne's injury this season that he's actually been scoring a lot of goals now where the ball's floated over to him this season by the likes of Jack Grealish, Julian Alvarez, Matheus Nunes. There's a lot of hang time with the ball in the air now, and what he's added to his game, which he didn't have as much of last season, is that ability to sort of have that, I guess you could say Ronaldo-esque, but certainly like an NBA basketballer type jump where he has a load of hang time, suspended in the air for seconds on end and then can power it, head it downwards into the goal. We've seen a few of them this season against the likes of Sheffield United away, which Jack Grealish assisted, and Nottingham Forest at home, which Matheus Nunes assisted. That was his first assist for the club. And of course there was the crotch goal at Stamford Bridge, which was unorthodox. Now I'm not going to really start drawing graphs to, not drawing... like analysing, I'm digging myself a hole, analysing that one because, you know, he was right place at the right time. The ball was perfect. He had to get any part of his body on it to score. They all count. We're not going to go too far into that one. Of course, as well, a larger part of his goal scoring, but not one that's particularly on the pitch and in play, has been his penalty taking, which he's pretty proficient at. He's missed 1 in the league so far at Sheffield United where he hit the foot off the post. Other than that, they've all sort of been smashed past the keeper. He's got a very sort of no-nonsense approach to his penalty-taking ability as well, so another string to his bow. Anyway, let's get into the meat of the video now, really. That, again, alright, that's not a joke about the Chelsea goal either. So his most common assister, Kevin De Bruyne. How has he done it? Where's it been from on the pitch? What makes KDB so special, but also what makes Erling Haaland work so well with KDB? Well, as we know, Kevin De Bruyne likes to operate in this sort of half-space area of the pitch. We've seen him do it way before Erling Haaland was a Man City player. He's been doing it for years, and he seems to be able to find that sort of, I guess, that half space at the back post, which used to be attacked by Raheem Sterling in seasons gone by, but is now able to be attacked by Erling Haaland in a slightly different way, because if you remember, Raheem Sterling used to make his run sort of from that back post position and ghost in behind, if you will, whereas Erling Haaland now, with his raw physical ability, his athleticism, his pace, just his general physical prowess, allows him to actually just get ahead of a defender one-on-one on countless occasions and beat them to the ball, whether that be an acrobatic volley, a header, you name it, a tap-in. He will always be there. Some of the best examples of this were actually earlier on in Erling Haaland's Manchester City career. I say earlier on, he's only been 18 months, but in like the first 6 months of when he was at the club. So at Aston Villa away, early on in the season last year, Kevin De Bruyne again floated cross to the back post. Erling Haaland was found there, unoccupied and ready to tap it into an empty net. Then a couple of weeks after that, they played Manchester United in that 6-3 thrashing, in which this was probably, I think, the best assist of the duo so far, really, where De Bruyne had it in that infamous half space where he occupies so often and found Erling Haaland with a sort of a cross, you could say, but it was also sort of hybridised with a through ball, just a perfectly weighted, floated through ball in a position where both De Gea and Martinez couldn't get to the ball, and Erling Haaland was outstretched but still found the net in what seemed like a pretty simple finish for him, but it wouldn't be for any normal striker. Then also a couple months later from a similar position, De Bruyne with a textbook cross and Erling Haaland beating his man and heading it into the net. That is the position in which Erling Haaland has really bared the most fruit when partnered with Kevin De Bruyne in this team. And I think it's going to continue when De Bruyne is back from injury. Another absolutely crazy thing, considering that he's got 50 goals in the Premier League already, is how many touches he averages for each goal that he scores. So when he receives the ball, how many touches does he actually take before putting the ball in the back of the net? It's usually 1, and his average is actually 1.3 over the 50 goals that he's scored. So 1.3 average touches per goal is absolutely frightening. So why is this the case? Well, the first thing to note is actually something a bit broader and why Manchester City is such a good team in general, because what Erling Haaland has done since coming in is he's not actually had to touch the ball because his presence just preoccupies 3 or 4 defenders at a time, leaving space for the likes of Jack Grealish, Phil Foden, Bernardo Silva, Riyad Mahrez last season, Kevin De Bruyne, you name it. It frees up the space for the creators in the team, meaning that all he has to do is be in the right place at the right time for when that chance is created at the opportune moment. This is also why he actually managed to rack up 7 assists last season, because he was preoccupying space for other people, meaning people could play off him, he could hold the ball up and feed someone else in with a 1-2. For instance, I remember Ilkay Gundogan scoring in Erling Haaland's first assist for Manchester City last season was one of these 1-2s where he sucked 3 or 4 defenders in, Gundogan made the second man run and he was fed through and finished 1-on-1. There was several instances like that last season where Erling Haaland was able to turn provider by just being a presence. But the fact that for the vast majority of goals that I'm looking at here, Erling Haaland has only had 1 touch for them, it means that the Man City players around him are really just creating the optimal chance for him to score, to the point where it only needs 1 touch. He never really has to set himself up. He's never in a phone box with defenders around him where he's got to dig the ball out of his feet and get a shot off like perhaps Aguero used to have to. He's always just bearing down on goal. It's either a header, a finish at the back post, or a 1v1 where he might just have to take 1 touch. But even then, with the one-on-ones, you only really actually have to look at Erling Haaland's Premier League debut at West Ham away to see this as well in full effect, because the second goal he scored in that game, he was played through by Kevin De Bruyne, and most strikers in an orthodox fashion there, especially if they're left-footed, would have perhaps taken a touch on their right to set themselves up on their left, or maybe just snatched on it on their right foot if they're not as good as Erling Haaland. But Erling Haaland, as you can sort of see here, in an almost Thierry Henry-esque manner, he opens his body up and fires it to the left-hand side of the goal. And it only required 1 touch, despite the fact that he had 4, 5, 6 seconds to really think about that finish. So it's the way Erling Haaland finishes his chances in general. He makes sure his body positioning is always right, to be on the half turn, to beat a man, to use that athleticism and power to get ahead of someone. Most of the time with City players and the goals that Haaland scored, it doesn't even have to be a pinpoint pass to him. It just simply has to be put in an area and he will get a flailing limb on it. The question this begs now he's scored 50 goals and he'll probably have scored 100 this time next year, can he improve? How does he improve? How do you make these stats even better? And I actually think there's a way that you can. Now, hear me out, because I know he is absolutely world class and this isn't necessarily a dig at him. I think he's young, and if you think about most strikers, your Luis Suarez's, Karim Benzema's, Robert Lewandowski's, Harry Kane's even, they all come into their prime, or all have come into their prime, around the age of 30, and this guy is just 23, so there is definitely things that he can improve on and add to his game. And I think it's his cross-shot finishing. Now, hear me out. Sometimes, and I've noticed this from just being a City fan and having watched him at games for the last 18 months, even though I've just said there, he optimises his chances and they're all 1-touch finishes, he does sometimes, because of the volume of chances he gets, he wants to snatch at shots and he takes them too early, and it's particularly from a cross-goal position. So, There's this graph here which I think actually tells a very, very telling story. So as you can see, the stars are the goals and the shots are just the dots. And then the amber hue, the more red it is, the more of a gilt edge goal scoring chance that is. So the yellow shots, they're lower XG shots, you could say, for the nerds out there. But as you can see here, he does convert far more chances from the centre of the box or from the right-hand side of the box where he's opening his body up, like I said. So the one-on-ones that he does get from the left-hand side of the box where he has to shoot a cross goal to the right-hand side of the goal, he actually converts far fewer of them, only about 50% of those chances, which is still obviously impressive, but not the same as where he converts centrally or to the left side of the goal where it's much, much more proficient. And you only actually have to look at the record-breaking 50th goal against Liverpool last weekend to realise this, because if you actually look at the finish itself and the position it's from, yes, he is from the left side of the box and he shoots a cross goal, but the shot was a bit scuffed and a little bit, I don't know, rushed wouldn't be what I'd say. He did take a touch to set himself up and he had to snatch at it because the defenders were bearing down, but he didn't get that sort of clean, assured connection that a Harry Kane perhaps would, or, you know, even like, I'm going to say it, like a Jamie Vardy. He was a very assured finisher where a lot of the time it was just rifled, roof of the net, job done. Haaland, a lot of the time, he seems to, from that position in the box, that left-hand side, get the ball kind of stuck under his feet. He might sometimes try a chip shot in these instances, which has sometimes worked for him in the past. But a lot of the time, these shots just seem to bobble or drag wide of that far post. So if you can iron up on these and score a few more cross-shot chances, then I actually think we'll see his numbers go up by 10, 15 goals a season, which is quite scary and also quite a realistic prospect, because if you think about how good he is, it is actually something that he could very, very easily improve on. So with all that said, out of the 50 Premier League goals, what is the average Erling Haaland goal? Well, it reads as follows. A left-footed strike from an average distance of 9.64 yards away, assisted by Kevin De Bruyne via a cross from the left-hand side of the pitch. He'd average 1.3 touches to turn that chance to goal. It will be scored at the Etihad Stadium in a 3-0 home win, and the average minute that he scored on has been the 47th. So there you go, that is the average Erling Haaland goal out of his 50 so far, which is pretty impressive. So there we go, a little bit of Erling Haaland propaganda, because why not? I don't think any fan of any team in the league can really say that he's a fraud. I don't want to see anyone saying in the comments that he's a tapping merchant, because, alright, he kind of is, but that's the sign of a good player. Ruud van Nistelrooy was, and look how he turned out. Great striker, so there you go. But let me know in the comments whether you think Erling Haaland can improve his game. Because obviously we know he's a good player, but let me know where you think he can improve, because he's got 50 goals now. We know more are going to follow. How can he get even better? Let me know that. There we go then. Don't forget to subscribe. We like to see that number going up, growing by the week. I have been Adam Monk. Hope you've had a very, very lovely day. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you very, very soon. Goodbye.